Hello there. You have stumbled upon the Terribly Vexed Podcast. The fellas have been expecting you. Please prepare to have your mind blown squarely out of your ass. Be sure to set your motherfucker to receive. Enjoy the show.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspaper.
Welcome back to the Terribly Vexed Podcast. Because we're coming right after
That's
this.
your JFK
Yeah, that's all I got.
impression?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's not the best.
Hey, welcome back to the Terribly Vexed Podcast. You know me, I'm Josh. I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Justin. I'm here too.
All right. I heard that. I heard that.
You know, I got to get prepped for this episode. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, so we did something a little different there. We opened with JFK's secret society speech that was given in 1961 at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Of course, you know, a couple years later, he'd have his fucking head blown off in Dealey Plaza there.
That was in Dallas.
That was in Dallas.
Mm-hmm. 11/22/63.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting speech that he gave. And just prior to start recording, you were listening to it there. What do you think he was talking about? What do you think he was referring to there when he was giving that sort of a little chat to everybody?
It's, secret societies, bad people in charge.
Yeah, a monolithic
and
opposition to everything, essentially, to society.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing.
As everything would eventually turn out for young JFK there,
it didn't end well.
In hindsight,
for the man.
It's interesting. It's an interesting speech that a lot of quote conspiracy theorists go to because he does mention secret societies.
I think that is the JFK assassination may be the biggest conspiracy of them all.
Yeah, it's certainly the one that
It's up there.
I'll go back into quite often.
Yeah.
You
And I
know?
started looking into it after you've been talking about it because I'm really not into that, conspiracy just yet. I'm getting there.
You mean
Nowhere near as deep as you are.
you mean sort of like history,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
right?
The quote, real stuff that happened.
Sure. We at this podcast, we enjoy talking about things like Bigfoot, aliens.
Mhm.
If for whatever reason a conspiracy theory podcast sort of just encompasses all of those things, all of those odd things in life that you're not really going to find an answer to, okay? But so take for example the title of today's episode, Parapolitics, the dark and murky world of parapolitics, which
To politics.
people may have not
Parapolitics.
parapolitics.
I got a parapolitics.
Which I'll give you the textbook definition of what parapolitics is here in just a minute. But, it's essentially, I've lost my train of thought now.
I'm sorry.
It's a parapolitics.
Yeah. Might as well hit that.
No.
We got a little surprise for you guys later.
we'll
A new
save it.
edition. What were you going to say, though?
I don't know. I don't have a clue in the
You have
world.
the because the definition of parapolitics would definitely help me.
Yeah, we'll get to it in just a second.
Okay.
But it's just what we were discussing is basically the fun stuff, the fun side of conspiracy theory and theories, all that goofy stuff that you're not going to find an answer to, that you can't prove, like Bigfoot, unless you want to go out there for a couple of weeks into the Pacific Northwest, like I've been recommending we do at some point.
Yeah. No,
Just to see if we can hear and or see something, have an experience of our own.
I would love that, and I would also be terrified of that. It's kind of alien abduction.
We need to address it. We need to address it and
I
see
think so.
for ourselves in our own lives and know and go out there.
Yeah. We
This
need
is not a Bigfoot episode, obviously, but
we can make it one.
you could.
JFK was Bigfoot.
JFK was Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
So
Bigfoot.
yeah, and then the other side of that is, again, it's just history. That's what this is basically. But the more we would say, I guess the stuff that I read, the stuff that I spend a good deal of time researching, it's not conspiracy theory. It would be categorized more as parapolitics, just so you know. And that's
Like stuff that it's documented as actually happening.
Yes.
Has happened.
has happened. And I guess before we move along, I could just go ahead and give you the textbook or the WikiSpooks definition of what that means.
I would love that.
So you have sort of a foundation here to start from, you see.
I'd love it because, like I was saying before we started recording, we're stepping into your wheelhouse here.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I don't know everything, you know.
Well, but certainly more than me.
Yeah, it's where I spend most of my time.
Yeah.
And if you go to our Instagram, that's where you're going to see a lot of the stuff posted. It has to do with just reality, just things that happened.
Yeah.
Operations that took place, covert operations, that is.
Covet.
Very good.
A little callback.
A little callback to what we just opened with there. But yeah, that was interesting though, right? What was he talking about with all that stuff, you know? I mean, what could he possibly have meant? Now, I think some people, given the time period, early 1960s, could have attributed a lot of what he was discussing in that speech to communism at the time. You know, but, or however, I think there was a little bit more to it. As we've, you know, several decades on now, many decades on, can look back on it.
Right. Now, I've just been... This is a quick little side note. This is related to JFK, but have you heard the theory about that the mafia was involved with his assassination?
You're joking, right?
See, to me, that was breaking news in my world.
When was this?
A couple weeks ago. Yeah, I said, I'm not well versed in the JFK conspiracy.
The JFK assassination.
But that blew my mind. The sewer shooter.
Yeah, there's
all this stuff's coming to light. This new shit has come to light for me, and it's now I see why it's such a good.
No, there's a lot of people that that's their beginning. That's where they start.
I know,
but it's the big one that will from there. There's lots of you'll see lots of things that sort of translate into other things that have happened in history. That one explains. It explains a lot. And if at any point people still think, once they've spent any time researching the JFK assassination, if they spend any time on that one and still walk away from it thinking that it was just the lone nut, which has been used over and over and over again to, for assassination purposes, some guy just decides to, whatever, go crazy. You'll see that there's so much more to it than that. I mean, that's what I've told people like yourself. If you've at any point decided to really dig into the whole JFK assassination, start with Lee Harvey Oswald first, because I think it was I don't know if it was a senator or somebody that was quoted as saying something to the effect of, everywhere you look with Oswald, there are the fingerprints of intelligence. It was something along those lines, because the dude was just, everywhere you looked with him in his whole career up to his little assassination, he was involved with intelligence. That's where you would start. And if at any point you can, get into it, that's where I would say don't start with the Kennedys and all that stuff or any of the other, because there's so much information where people will waste so much time arguing and bickering over, pointless. But start with Lee Harvey Oswald and his life and everything that was going on with him leading up to it. Because that will tell you pretty much everything you need to know. There's a couple of good books, out about him that talk specifically about him, that just follow his life.
Yeah.
There's no way you can walk away from that whole thing and still think, it's just a lone nut. Just decided to,
There's that video that you posted on our Instagram of him when he realized that he was being convicted or whatever, whatever it was.
It's when
the look on his face.
The journalist, after he had been captured, I guess he had just been captured at the movie theater, and he was being paraded in front of the press, which is something they wouldn't do now.
No.
But at the time, I guess one of the police officers said that they were just trying to be cooperative because of what had just happened, so they were trying to get answers. And you're right. It's that moment when he realizes that one of the journalists was basically telling him, you have just been charged with assassinating the president, and he just drops. He's like, oh shit, I am screwed.
Yeah.
So when he says he was a patsy, he really was. He was no doubt part of some sort of an operation. I don't know if he knew what kind of an operation he was part of. He was made to be, here's a term for you. We're doing with all kinds of fun terms in this little episode. People can learn and apply to other things, because you'll see him in other instances. It's he was sheep dipped. You ever heard that?
No, but I love it.
Yeah, sheep dipped. It's basically where you're given you're immersed into another world, and you're sort of given a persona to make people think that you're something that you're not. So, like, for example, he was conveniently filmed handing out pro-Cuba communist pamphlets and flyers and information on the side of a road, It was just to make him look like he was a communist. That was the whole purpose of that nonsense.
Sheep dipped.
Sheep dipped, right. It's an intelligence network agency term for somebody that they're putting into, basically putting them undercover, right? You get it.
Yeah.
They're undercover, but they're sheep dipping them. They're putting them in some sort of a situation where that's not what they are at all. They're undercover, and they're trying to make everybody think that they're something that they're not. Like his defection to Russia. Again, we're talking about Lee Harvey Oswald. His defection to Russia. That was all just a charade. That's all that was.
They were trying to pull the wool over our eyes
Very good.
by sheep dipping.
Right. It's a common technique.
I think I just made sense of it.
Very well done.
Thank you.
So anyway, real quick, parapolitics, just to give you the textbook definition, is used to describe either covert political activity that is hidden from the public or a complete de facto political system, typically comprising elements of the military and intelligence apparatus. Hidden from the public, political actions of subterfuge, secrecy, and deceit, and is increasingly used in discussions on democracy to describe the behavior of the deep state. Hate that term, i.e. coalitions of institutions and corporations to operate above or outside of the elected government. Huh? I'm getting better.
That was
reading.
incredible. Like, and for everybody listening, that was not pre-read, like my letter about Joseph Bell last episode.
Yeah, so there's your textbook definition. Basically, it's like I said to you just before we started recording, to use a wrestling term, it's kayfabe is what it is. It's not kayfabe, excuse me. It's not the stuff you see on your TV. It's not the, quote, elected officials. It's everything that's actually happening in the world, but nobody's talking about, nobody's reporting on. It's stuff that you kind of have to, dig into your history books. There's a lot of good accounts, people that do a lot of research on Twitter that I follow. And, it's just, generally speaking, it's a journalist, it's a writer, it's an author that just spends a few decades researching all of this information, and it's individuals, that ultimately come up with a lot of answers to these things that have happened in history. But parapolitics describes that world, that murky world of, clandestine, covert operations. Covet, that you don't see on the news. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Just a little bit there.
Yeah. Well,
so we'll call this an introduction to parapolitics, because we're not going to be getting into the depths of any sort of specific operation, but we're going to be talking about a few of them. Just so you kind of get a basis for idea of what's going on.
Yeah. That's good that it's a basic introduction, because I am in desperate need of that.
I mean, it's anything. It's anything that's happened in history, any kind of operation. I've got this list that I've shared with Justin when we first started the podcast here. And that's all that is. It's completely separate from anything like Bigfoot or anything like that. This is all just history, basically.
Yeah. Was one we talked about in the very first episode, perhaps? The introductory episode, Operation Sea Spray?
Correct.
That's a good one.
That could be considered something that you would categorize as parapolitics.
I like
it was a secret operation.
Is that San Francisco?
Yeah, San Francisco. And it was just testing, biological weapons in that scenario. Not an actual biological weapon. It was some sort of what they supposed it was a benign sort of bacteria, but they were just wanting to see if they could use it for possibly later, some sort of a chemical agent.
So they used that bacteria, then
in fog,
put it in the fog that came into San Francisco.
Yeah, and it just enveloped the city, of course.
Yeah, and then they tested people.
Some people died from that operation.
Okay.
I think there was like a dozen or so people that actually did get some sort of lung infection. But
really they were just seeing if they could use the fog as a spreader.
Yeah, in that particular instance, that's what they were doing. But it's going to be any sort of like, paramilitary operation.
Yeah.
That's taking place. And of course, JFK's assassination is a prime example of that. Because clearly this was a planned operation. This was not a lone nut. And if you've, like I said, spent any time reading, researching that assassination, but those things were happening all over the place. It was Patrice Lumumba, they assassinated him just a few years prior. And again, this is all stuff that, why aren't we talking about the fact that the CIA was involved in the assassination of a leader? I mean, all the coups that have happened all over the world, that's all intelligence network stuff that's happening there.
I wonder, do people just like I am one of these people. You just assume that kind of stuff is happening all the time. So like when people like yourself get all into it and research it and, invest a lot of time into looking into it, it's just kind of like, to me, it's like, well, it's going on. Why are you even worried about it? You know what I mean?
Why worry about it?
Why worry about it? When there's more important things like aliens to worry about.
I know, the other side, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Crop circles.
To me, yeah.
Should be worrying about crops.
Exactly.
Not worrying necessarily, but just
I'm terrified.
Thinking and focusing on crop circles.
Crop circles. That is a bad example, though.
Yeah, so like...
I don't like crop circles. But that's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. You know what I mean, though? Like, I just assume this shit's going on all the time. Constantly.
Covert operations are happening all the time.
Yeah. Who the hell are you? I just met you randomly. You could have been like, you could have a whole backstory I don't even know about.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because lots of people are working for intelligence agencies.
Yeah,
and that's come out over the many decades. Since originally there was the, I guess before the CIA it was the OSS. We're talking World War II, and then it became the CIA. Obviously there was a need to have an intelligence network in place, and that's what became the Central Intelligence Agency. But you think about how many agencies there are now. It's the DIA, it's the CIA, it's the NSA. I mean, I couldn't even possibly list them out all here for you. There's so many of them. And of course, people theorize to what degree these agencies, these groups, these operations are happening so much so that, like, depending on how big they are, obviously, like you're talking the JFK assassination, that went all the way to the top. This was...
Oh, yeah.
But compartmentalization, which I've mentioned before, not everybody like you work for a company, for example, you don't know what the CEOs and the people in the ivory tower, what their decisions are, what they're doing. So the guy at the bottom doesn't necessarily know what the next guy is doing, and you've got different, groups and different operations happening. Nobody...
Yeah. They're all doing what they're told.
Nobody has the full picture.
Right.
So that's a very important thing a lot of people have talked about, is the compartmentalization inside of these intelligence agencies. And people also kind of wonder and theorize as to how they communicate with each other, and if in fact they are sort of at odds with one another too, is kind of an interesting thing that I've seen when I've been researching this stuff.
Like each like CIA, FBI, for example.
Not really known to like each other.
Like each other.
Those two agencies don't really seem to like each other. But I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's an accurate assessment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you... Yeah. It's like every cop show, the cops are investigating, the FBI shows up. It's the goddamn FBI are here.
Right.
That kind of a thing, like...
Is that just theatrics?
Yeah. Or does that go all the way up,
I don't know that it does. I mean, from everything I've seen, like, sort of read about, like, J. Edgar Hoover and stuff in his days of the FBI when he was in charge. Important to note too that he ran the world that he had by blackmail. Everything was blackmail, and he was a degenerate perv himself, which is funny because he had all this, blackmail material on people, and that's the way he kind of, it's like Epstein's, sex blackmail pedo thing he had going on. This is obviously not the only one. We're Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial in your face, but you don't actually... We got nothing from the Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
Yeah, what's going on there? That is odd.
And
is that going on right now, or did it already happen? I haven't really... Honestly, I haven't even heard a thing about it.
Yeah. I think she's... was she convicted of some things, but I don't know if she's been, like, actually sentenced or anything. I'm not sure.
See, we don't even know that, but we know Amber Heard's dog stepped on a bee.
Right.
We all know that.
And of course, it's just a defamation trial. Obviously, that's why they can get cameras and stuff in there. But
yeah, that's true.
This would have been sort of like this would have been a federal, Nonetheless, we got no information from that, and by all accounts, he was working with intelligence agencies when he did ran his operation. And so anyway, that would be another example of, fall into the category of sort of parapolitics, where these things are happening and nobody's talking about them. So it again sort of gets categorized as conspiracy theory. It's like kind of the Franklin scandal. You familiar with that one? Which was the whole, same pedo ring type situation that was happening in like Omaha, Nebraska. That's been sort of just pushed off to the side and labeled a big hoax, but there's actually doing a book right now, which is going to be the actual Franklin scandal book.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Shoot.
What exactly is the Franklin scandal? Real quick, just to have a quick background on that, because I have never heard of that in my life.
Well, you're not supposed to.
I know. That's probably, yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
Lawrence King, he basically embezzled a bunch of money. He had a credit union, I think, in Nebraska, and but he was also running a pedo ring out of that. And he was sort of a semi-prominent political figure, ally to certain politicians, and he had connections to D.C., and they would fly these kids back and forth. But again, this whole thing's been labeled a hoax, never been put on any sort of real platform, This guy is still alive. I mean, he didn't even serve any time or anything like that.
Really?
Yeah, he had a sort of a cohort in D.C., and his name was Craig Spence. And you can read up all about Craig Spence, man. Just another
Spence.
Yeah, he ran the same sort of operation. It was like Donald Trump's former, I think he was his attorney at one point. It was Roy Cohn.
Yeah.
Had the same pedo operation running. He was in D.C. and he was part of the McCarthy hearings too, which is funny. He was one of the lawyers for the McCarthy hearings where they were, trying to root out the communists back in the 50s and stuff. He had the same sort of pedo ring running, just like Epstein, just like this Craig Spence guy. And Craig Spence was actually, he was, I don't know if he committed suicide or was made to commit suicide or basically committed suicide because he knew he was going to be killed. He was just an asset of some sort of intelligence agency. Most people assume probably the CIA.
Yeah.
But he was connected with the Lawrence King guy, who I think some people had recently discovered on Twitter. He actually lives in D.C. now, which is kind of funny. I mean, he's in the belly of the beast.
He's
up
right there.
Yeah, and no doubt being protected, because he ran this operation. Your tax dollars hard at work, folks. But again, that just parapolitics, because a lot of these politicians would be implicated, and attached to these operations. And that's probably why they're not talking about it.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
Say that, yeah, that's a safe guess.
But like all the kids and stuff, there was like I think it was called Boys Town, and it was like a foster care home that was out there in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Been around for a long time, and I think they were basically just using that as a farm to get these kids, just getting them right from that, Of course, these kids didn't have any, families, didn't have any parents.
Perfect
for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would have private jets and stuff. And I have to say, they call it a hoax, but as much research as, I think his name is Nick Bryant, who has written that book. And there's way too much information there for it to have been this was just a bunch of kids making shit up, which is what they tried to say. It's one of those situations where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm not going to do it.
We'll save it.
But there really is. There really is. So, again, sort of falls into that category. You've got politicians, you've got very powerful people, and you've got these covert blackmail operations taking place. But it's not just, blackmail operations. It's military operations. As we played that excerpt from JFK's Secret Society speech at the beginning of the episode,
yeah.
He's talking about the unholy alliance of the military, intelligence community, big business, bankers, Wall Street, finance, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people that are making the decisions for your life. Okay. The Depression back in the 30s or whatever.
Yeah.
It didn't just fall from the fucking sky. All right. These things don't just happen. I've said that so many times to people. Like, I'm trying to like I'm on a crusade, Justin.
Oh, I
These
know.
things
I
don't
know.
just fall from the fucking sky, bro. They don't.
So
they're planned. They're orchestrated.
So, okay, you know all this information. Let's just say, for this question, it's 100% true, right?
For argument's sake, is that where we're...
For argument's sake, this is all 100% true.
Man, this Modelo is delicious.
Isn't it?
Modelo.
Cerveza. What are you going to do about it, though? Like, what can be done about it?
It's funny that you say that because nothing is going to be done about it. It really just falls almost into the category of being labeled pop culture, really,
right.
for the most part.
Right.
It's all academic. People research it, people know this shit happens, and not a damn thing can be done about any of it.
It's kind of like quantum physics. It's happening. We sure about it? Mostly. And then, what can we do about it? Nothing. All right. Well, let's keep looking into it.
We'll just keep looking into it.
Is quantum physics physics the word I'm looking for there? What am I thinking of?
I don't know exactly.
I think my analogy may have been slightly off, but I think I've made a good point.
I think you have too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I think originally, so like we were going to go and sort of do like a current events. What's happening right now in the world? We've got mass shooters everywhere.
Yeah.
But we just sort of got right into parapolitics. But really, honestly, this would also describe mass shooting events as well. I had some conversations with people recently. And just so people know, these mass shooters, they're communicating with other people. They're talking to people regularly in forums on the internet. Everybody uses the internet now. I don't care if you're a psycho that decides to go off and kill a bunch of people. They're communicating with people online.
It's so darn convenient.
So convenient, right?
Yeah.
It's right there. It's in your hand every day on your phone. You can always, but they're always using I think right now they always like to attribute a lot of these mass shooters to using 4chan.
Yeah. Which I don't understand it, because check this out. I had an idea the other day. I like to play this phone game, right? It's got a little in-game chat with your clan or your group, whatever. What is happening in those little things? Like we just all start a farm together, or a clan, whatever it may be. We're all terrorists. We're just sitting in there chit-chatting about destroying whatever.
So what's your question?
So many different forums. Why do they pick like these giant, like 4chan or Reddit? Why do they always go on these wide open channels when you can just you can play a game of chess with somebody?
Right.
But there's a little chat thing in there. You're playing chess, but there's a little chat. Why not just chat in there? Why is it all so public?
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter where you're chatting or what form. It doesn't matter.
True.
All digital communications. This is something people need to know. All digital communications are being monitored.
I get that.
Everything, everywhere, at all times.
Right.
Everything. Every text you send, every call you make, every website you use, everything is being monitored. The idea, once again, that these people just show up. I mean, they've seen more often than not that these people were being monitored and have been spotted previously, years before even in some cases.
Right.
They knew about them.
Right.
The FBI knew about them. A law enforcement agency local to where the person lived knew about them. Somebody knew something. The idea that these people just, especially now, since the advent of the internet, the idea that they just show up and this shit just happens and nobody knows anything is absurd. And like 4chan and all these forums, feds. Feds everywhere, man. They're all fedded up. It's absurd to think that, but people do. They're like, why doesn't somebody know anything? Why didn't somebody see this? Friends, family. They'd be the last ones to know, but like...
Well, I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
100%. Every digital thing is monitored.
Everything.
But let's just say me and you want to do some heinous activity. Surely there's a better way than 4chan to talk. So are these things being monitored? Is our chess game being monitored as closely as 4chan, Reddit?
I mean, I
Twitter.
think a lot of people, obviously more in the know than I am, would be better to ask something like that too. But I would say that everything is being monitored. I don't know. People are wondering constantly, I'm sure, as to what level with which data is being mined, I guess, and being observed. But I would say assume everything all the time.
Okay. Do you see my point, though?
Well, you could stand to probably specify it.
Just saying, there's better ways to communicate than 4chan. If you're out there and you're listening to this and you want to do some heinous shit, play a game of chess with somebody. Play a game of chess with your partner.
Just an app? You're talking about an app?
Yeah, chess.com. Heyday, for instance.
You're directing people to communicate with
private communications.
So the when they were going to kidnap Governor Whitmer of Michigan, weren't there how many feds were involved in that group or whatever, right? Of these militiamen, whatever the hell they were. I've heard different numbers, but I mean there was upwards of 8 to 10 guys that were all feds. I mean Ruby Ridge. That when that thing happened, that was a Fed. There was a Fed that had infiltrated this group up there, and he just kept harassing Randy Weaver, who just passed away recently, about making some sawed-off shotguns. And of course, he was going to pay him an exorbitant amount of money to do it. So eventually, he just said yes, because I would assume he probably just kept offering more and more money for him to do it. And eventually he was like, oh, well, I can't turn down that money. Got, 3-4 kids, we're living up here on the mountain. Backed him into a corner, That feds had already infiltrated that group, They knew everything. It's like they knew Waco. They knew what the hell he was doing all the time. That whole thing where they killed all those people and burned all that stuff down. They knew his schedule. They knew, anyway. I would say I could go off on that, but that's kind of the point of the podcast, I guess.
Out of everything that you just said, Waco is all I knew of.
You've never heard of Ruby Ridge?
Nope.
It's kind of a big one.
That's what I'm saying. I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff. I'm clueless.
It's okay.
Do you want me to just leave and you can just talk?
Yeah. Just go ahead and take your beer with you and your horn.
All right. Hey, that's a surprise for later. Unreal.
You can cut that part out.
I'll edit that out.
Get that time code so you can...
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Anyway.
Sorry.
So, yeah. All of those things... damn, I lost my train of thought now.
I'm sorry. Did I derail you?
What?
Did I derail you?
Got derailed.
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Have to get on a rant, get on a wave and ride that puppy till its ends.
Well, next time I won't do that.
Cut all this shit out. Cut all this shit out.
Why? This is the good stuff. This is the part people want to hear.
Cut this shit out. This is crap. Had a nice, good thing going, and it's all...
I wrecked it.
I didn't know I wasn't supposed to bring up the horn. Sorry.
I don't care about the fucking horn.
Done. I'm out. Anyway, yeah. So you don't know about Ruby Ridge. That's okay. If you're, you spend a lot of your time researching aliens and crop circles, that's okay. That's good too. That's good too. People need that. We need to step away from this stuff, parapolitics, the things that have happened in history. Every time you can't be talking, it's depressing as hell. I get that. because a lot of people will dive. I'll dive into it for every once in a while, and I'll stay in there for a while, and then I got to come out. I got to stick my head above the because it's
fresh
depressing.
air.
Because there's certain operations. We're going to mention a few of them. One of them was Operation Phoenix. And that was an operation that would have been in like Vietnam is where that originated. And from there, Operation Phoenix went over into South America, became Operation Condor. Okay. And hey, everybody, you can read up on these. They got wiki pages now. It's okay. You can go find them. It's not top secret anymore, but like they theorize between 80 and 100,000 people were killed in Operation Condor in South America. And this was about, quote, rooting out the subversives, What
were they doing down there? Like, what was that operation?
It was basically just you had these groups, which we'll go into Operation Gladio here in a minute, which would kind of play into what's going on today with the mass shooters. It basically was just about rooting out subversives. But of course, what is a subversive? It was basically people that didn't like what was going on. So you had this alliance between, take the 1954 Guatemala coup, for example. That was the United Fruit Company. They just wanted to secure their business. They wanted to secure their financial investment in Guatemala. So you oust, via an assassination, the democratically elected leader and put in a dictator that's friendly to your company, to the government from the country that they're originating from, which is the U.S., obviously. And then you put your people in place. And that's a covert operation. We know these things happen now.
Yeah.
50, 60, 70 years on. But at the time, it didn't appear as to be what was happening,
Yeah. Are the strategies changing in this day and age, or do you think this is like still the basic formula?
Absolutely, and I think it's
still the basic formula, or they are changing.
No, it's exactly what's happening today.
Okay,
things don't get better; they get worse.
Fair enough.
Insider tip: they don't get better; they get worse. And
be a good doctor.
Yeah, so like I that Operation Condor, they would just go to people's houses and kidnap them, right? One of the ways of getting rid of people, I think they did their I don't know if it was helicopter flights or if it was aircraft flights, but they would fly over the rainforest and just throw these people out of planes. I think I sent that to you in a text recently.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah.
Yeah. This was one of their many ways of ridding themselves of undesirables. What the dictatorship, what the whoever it was that put this person in charge, that was their way. And I think in Operation Condor there was like 7 or 8 countries in South America that were all part of this operation. So it wasn't just one country. Anybody it could have been like not necessarily an intellectual, but some sort of a professor, anybody that could organize against the state was rooted out. Or, you could easily turn somebody like that. That's why there's so many people that work for these intelligence agencies and nobody knows their assets. They're they don't necessarily have to be officers, like the media in the U.S., for example.
Yeah.
New York Times and Washington Post. I mean, that's all just that's an extension of the CIA. That's all that is.
Yeah.
That has no. They're not an independent. They're not giving you unbiased news. This is the public relations for the intelligence community is what that is. And they do. Oh, another term, by the way. Another term. We should have. Anyway, just every time there's a new fun little term. Have you ever heard of the term unlimited or limited hangout? Excuse me.
Limited hangout.
Limited hangout.
No.
Never heard that term before?
It sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not sure.
Whitney Webb has a podcast called Unlimited Hangout. Right?
Maybe that's why. Maybe that is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's probably what it is.
Yeah.
She got a good podcast. She does a lot of interviews. And I think she's supposed to have an Epstein book coming out if it's not already out. I posted it on our Instagram at one point. She's a pretty kick-ass journalist. She's an independent journalist, and this is where she spends a great deal of her time in this world of parapolitics, talking about and reporting on the intelligence community and covert actions. She's like us, and we like her, trying to beg people just to stop looking at the TV and just like, what Biden said. Everybody likes to attribute something to the guy that's the president at the time, which is hilarious. The Biden administration did this.
Yeah.
The Trump administration did that. The Bush administration, the Clinton, they're all the same. That doesn't matter.
Yep.
Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter who the president is. They have no position of power. They're not calling any shots.
I know that. Even I know that. He's the front man. Guy that takes the blame.
Right. Kayfabe.
There it is. He is getting his ass sheep dipped nonstop.
It's like Bill Burr said that time, it's like they take the new president into a room and show him the JFK assassination from an angle that nobody has ever seen.
Yeah.
That's it. That's absolutely the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you try to, sort of challenge the status quo, you're going to get your head blown off. That's just the way it is. If a president hasn't gotten his head blown off, he ain't doing shit. All right? You do what you're told. You get the nice house in Maui. You get the nice house on Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Speaking of presidential assassinations, is there a conspiracy theory behind Abe Lincoln that you know of? Old Booth.
I'm sure there is.
It's got to be.
Have I spent any time?
I didn't know if you were versed in that at all.
Not really.
Okay.
I constantly go back to the Civil War, not for the obvious reasons as to what was taking place at that time, but
because you were pro-South, right?
Right, because I'm from the South, right?
Yeah.
So it'd have to be pro-South. No, but it's like a lot of things changed in the U.S., like our recent history, the world we inhabit now, can still kind of go back to what happened during the Civil War on into sort of like the early part of the 20th century, because you had a lot of big things happening right there,
Yeah.
So like the world we inhabit today, the modern world in which we deal with, early 20th century, things started changing. I just remember reading one time that it was talking about lobbying kind of started in the Civil War era U.S., which is a big one. I don't understand that, why people are like, oh, yeah, lobbying's completely normal and legal. You can just pay a politician to do what you want them to do. Okay, so
odd.
Why the hell is that legal? Why is that going on? And that's just the shit you know about.
All right.
Real quick, just to go back to the limited hangout, the term, just so people have the textbook definition of it, is a tactic used in media relations, perception management, politics, information management, which originated as a technique in the espionage trade. Basically, it's there's something that's happened, okay? And perhaps this thing has happened and it's come to light. People know about it. People are reporting on it. But it's a controlled narrative of that event. They'll give you some of the information, but certainly not all the information.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of from there, I guess we kind of transition into talking about like the mass shooters like today.
Yeah.
Another one that people have questions about, which is, we got no answers to, was the Las Vegas shooting, right? The Las Vegas shooting.
Las Vegas shooter.
Sorry about that. A little swig of the old Modelo.
There you go. Yeah, the Vegas shooting, old Stephen Paddock. It's the oddest one. The most people killed.
Absolutely no answers.
And zero reason.
And I watched the
no manifesto.
Las Vegas sheriff guy there was basically just like, yeah, sorry, we did a investigation and we didn't nothing.
We got nothing.
It's just
we don't know why he did
fucking ridiculous. I swear.
I know, but I guess that's obviously what the guy wanted. I mean, obviously he had a reason.
Was it the guy? Do we even know if it was him?
Dun, dun, dun. You don't know.
Yeah.
Stevie Paddock.
I mean, like, get a text every so often from one of our friends, old Jason.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what the fuck happened in Vegas? I get a text from him like at 2 a.m.
He still is
absolutely
concerned.
Well, just like intrigued by
concerned. Yeah.
the total just memory hold, which is a term that's being used a lot now, but it's true. It's like, oh, just forget about that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that little incident.
Yeah, but that one, it seems like, not like forget about it, like, brush it under the rug, but just like, we don't know. Like, they're admitting to that. Like, a lot of times they're like 9/11, there's all this conspiracy theories and whatnot. Although, there is some conspiracy theories on the Vegas shooter, about helicopters were there shooting. Have you heard all that stuff? Like, they were those silent helicopters people were shooting.
Yeah, and I haven't really dug into
I haven't either.
The loss, because really there ain't nothing to dig into.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just,
other than the fact that there's some of the audio. I remember reading one time that there was too many shots being fired simultaneously. It was very much like JFK's assassination, because later they had audio recordings. Apparently some sort of state trooper or something had some sort of an audio, something was recording on his motorcycle, and they'd picked up 2 shots that happened almost at the same time, which means one person couldn't have been, shooting. So essentially the same thing was sort of happening there. The rounds were coming so fast that it could not have been from one person.
Yeah, and then I heard something about, as far as that goes, like, obviously it's Vegas, a lot of tall buildings, echoes.
Yeah.
It could be like a re-echo coming, or the bump stock was messing up and it just like hit 2 real quick, like bump stocks are all.
I mean, they're going to have explanations for it.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
But like earlier in the episode, I mentioned Operation Gladio, which was, and real quick, because this kind of ties into it, like we were saying earlier, we know that a lot of these people have been observed. In some cases, they've even been arrested, I think. A lot of these mass shooter events, they've shown up on radars at various places, right? So like Operation Gladio, people are sort of, I have seen people making this connection. And real quick, I'm just going to give you as soon as I can pull the stupid thing up on my stupid, I thought I had it up here, but apparently I didn't.
Oh, see, this is what you need, old-fashioned
paper. I know.
Paper.
I know. Paper.
It's paper. 40 minutes with a wee one.
Can never have enough Waterworld references.
Nope.
We should have at least one in every episode.
I agree.
So Operation Gladio was a code name for a clandestine stay-behind operations of armed resistance that were organized by the Western Union and subsequently by NATO and the CIA. They're always got their little finger just...
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. It's a massive, massive agency. I mean, technically, I guess most people say that it's small in comparison to others, but the thing is you have assets. You have people that actually work for the agency that aren't part of the payroll, that get paid through, black budgets and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, in collaboration with several European intelligence agencies, the operation was designed for a potential Warsaw Pact invasion and conquest of Europe, although Gladio specifically refers to the Italian branch of the NATO stay-behind organizations. Operation Gladio is used as an informal name for all of them. Stay-behind operations were prepared in many NATO member countries and some neutral countries. Basically, to sum that up for you, and again, has a Wikipedia page. You can go and read up on the history of Operation Gladio. You put these groups, I don't know if they're directly officers of these different agencies or just assets, what they called, I guess was Fletcher Prouty called, what was the name? Mechanics. These were hitmen, right? But these were just professional agitators. That's all they were. Different groups, possibly, like we'd mentioned earlier, competing with each other. And not necessarily even knowing if one or the other is part of some sort of other agency. Right? So they're just professional agitators funded by your tax dollars, once again, to go out and cause problems, right? And so this sort of people have been attaching this to I want to take like the Boston bombing, the marathon bombing, for example. I mean, these people in a lot of cases, like in your Fast and the Furious, where they were, ATF was putting weapons out there, so they could supposedly track these weapons and see where they were going, which failed miserably. And people, were getting killed by these weapons that law enforcement agencies were putting out. That's basically what Operation Gladio was too. So people are just wondering, yes, Operation Gladio supposedly stopped at a certain point. It ran for a while and then it ended. But did it actually end? You know what I mean?
That is the question.
Yeah. Is it still going on? Are these people professional agitators? Not necessarily the person that ends up shooting up a school, but he's being sort of propped up like so many people. He's being assisted. We know a lot of these shooters have been assisted by the FBI. They were known about by the FBI, and they were, given weapons, given instruction on how to do things. There's lots of questions. And of course, now we're getting this sort of idea, this narrative that the cops were just incompetent and stuff. And I'm always hesitant to like, oh, that's what it was. The cops, all 100 and however many of them were standing outside the school. I'm talking about the most recent,
Texas. Were
they actually incompetent? What's really going on? Anytime we're getting spoon-fed some sort of I'm very reluctant to believe it. History has told me not to believe that shit.
Even a school shooting like that? What's to gain from that?
What's to gain from a school shooting?
Yeah. I mean,
what happens ultimately in the bigger picture?
Right.
I don't know. Other than the fact that your fear is a tactic that's used a lot.
That's true.
To control the masses. Fear is a big one. So, I mean, could that be just a constant, I don't know.
Just something to worry about.
I mean, when you're talking about like an Operation Condor in South America, there's 100,000 people that were killed in numerous ways. They were just abducted and killed.
Yeah.
And people think like, oh, well, that was happening 40 years ago. That doesn't happen now. It absolutely happens now. So, again, what was JFK talking about there? What was this monolithic, opposition to society? What are their goals? I constantly have all these groups that you can look at. A lot of people don't know about, like the Club of Rome, think tanks, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, which are absolutely controlling. And what are their objectives? What is their purpose? Again, this all falls into the parapolitics category because nobody talks about this shit in your sort of mainstream channels because they own all of those channels.
Right.
Your main news sources and stuff. They're talking about all this shit that doesn't matter, that you can't really get you're not going to get an answer to.
Yeah. So when we post this, are we in danger of our lives for talking about it?
Probably.
Good. Thank God.
More than likely.
So,
you have questions?
I'm just going back to the shootings. Do you think if the shootings are like a
fear tactic of some kind,
or is it like more of a distraction to get us all arguing about guns, and then while other stuff's going on, we're just like.
I mean, I think they ultimately want us to kill each other. So,
right.
I mean, they go for the guns, but when stuff like this happens, all that starts getting talked about changing, I guess, certain rules and procedures.
Yeah.
But gun sales go through the roof every time. I know. Every time this gets talked about, more people buy more guns.
Yeah.
So you're having the exact opposite effect of what you supposedly want. I don't know, just like, people jumping on any kind of, like a knee-jerk reaction to something. I don't know.
You mean like Ukraine support?
Right.
Oh.
Could quickly transition into that.
Good.
Talk about that.
God, it makes me sick.
What was the term you had for it when people take a bumper sticker and put it on their truck and Slacktivism.
Right. And I hate it. Does nothing other than let other people know that you think you're a good person and that you're thinking on the right side of things.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it. You know, I went to Florida a couple weeks ago. I sent you the picture. I was behind somebody. Giant windshield, or like I guess rear windshield, whatever. Rear window sticker. Stand by Ukraine, and a giant flag. Ukraine. Josh, let me ask you this real quick.
Okay.
Did you even know what the flag of Ukraine looked like before this thing happened?
I did not.
Nobody did. And as a guy I work with said, it's an ugly flag.
That's a good point.
Nobody wants it.
It's a little plain.
Everybody just thinks that they need to show their support.
Well, like...
what are they doing, though? How is that helping?
That's where I was going next, is I don't know what the hell's going on over there. I don't trust any of this information we're being fed, because I've learned through all of my readings that you cannot believe the official story, whatever the hell it is. I have from credible sources, people that I have followed, information checks out. You know, you have people you follow, and anybody that says, go read this for yourself, go look for this information yourself, and you can verify it yourself, which I would encourage people to do, not just from one source, but from numerous sources, you know? And again, it takes time to just figure out what's kind of going on. You can't just jump on a bandwagon and, this is what everybody says is what's going on, so this must be it. That's the worst thing you can do.
So you're pro-Russia is what you're saying.
Right.
Gotcha.
I'm definitely pro-Russia.
Yeah.
I'm pro-me. I'm pro what I can figure out.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so yeah, the point is, it's like I have no idea what's happening.
I know.
You're waving a flag. You don't even know what the hell's going on over there.
No,
everything
guy up the street from here. You've seen him when you come in the neighborhood. He's got his little flag up there.
Yeah.
For what?
What do you even know? Anything? Do you know anything about anything?
Yeah.
I mean, just read a history book, man. It's like, come on, you don't. Yeah. Anyway, so like, point is, I don't know. It doesn't. Don't do that. That's the best I could say. Don't start waving a flag. You don't have any idea what the hell's going on over there. It's never that simple.
Only unless they are Ukrainian and they have family over there. I can see that at that point, just to show. But if you're just if I did that, if I had put the Ukraine bumper sticker on my car, I would want you to punch me in the face.
I mean, larger objectives, bigger things, and the people that are really calling the shots in the world, they have no problem with killing thousands of people. Wars happen over nothing, and who knows why they're happening. Ultimately, what the main objective is of this conflict, this war. You know, by all accounts, from everything that I've read, like about Vietnam, man, it was just a money grab. Like most times when they say follow the money, that's pretty damn accurate.
Yeah.
It's because, just think about how many, Huey helicopters were, shot down. So that's money. That's business.
Huey helicopters.
Right.
I like that. I mean, there's something I think I can.
Money. It's all about money.
Yeah. Well, I've been saying this for years. I don't know if you heard this or not. Money makes the world go round.
I've never heard that before.
I know.
I like that, though.
Thank you. You can use it.
Thanks, man.
But it just seems like, I mean, everything is just, that's all it is.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, that coup in Guatemala and numerous other coups take place because of money and investment, some sort of investment in a natural resource that's in a country. Remember a year ago, when all those people, prime ministers and presidents in Africa were dropping dead left and right?
Yep.
There's been a lot of, sort of bucking the system because they're going in, I've read anyway, at least, having to do with like certain natural resources needed for, batteries, electric car battery production and stuff like that. And a lot of these countries in Africa have those. What happens? President gets assassinated, put somebody in who's, friendly with the country that wants whatever natural resource they have.
Yeah. I
mean, there's William Bloom's book on can't remember the title of the book right now, but it basically just goes through all the different coups and all the interventions the U.S. has had. And so I think it's probably like 50 or 60 year time period.
Yeah.
It's a thick book, all right? Let me tell you right now.
Going back to that Africa thing, and that dude got assassinated or whatever. That's where I first...
There was a guy in Haiti that got assassinated too.
Maybe it was one of those. It was during that whole thing where I realized, like, because you've seen like girls with backpacks that had a patch of the dude's face on it, and like, you don't even know who that guy is. What do you? Why did you put that on your bag?
You saw somebody?
Yeah, it was. I can't remember the guy's name. I bet you she can't either.
Probably not.
Yeah, but
was this the guy in Haiti that got assassinated?
Yeah,
and at least a couple of those guys in that
was
team.
One of the
they had connections to. I think they had intelligence connections themselves. There was a couple of the guys that they captured. Apparently, their way outs got screwed or something, right? Which is why they all got a hold of them. I don't even know what happened to those guys. I hadn't read anything about it. Haven't seen anything about it.
Yeah.
But
old news, man.
Old news.
Old news.
Yeah, it's like, we were talking about Ghislaine, it's like this is the stuff that you need to be knowing about. Why was nobody, if she went to trial, why was nobody, else brought up on charges of anything? They knew exactly what the hell they were doing. Nobody else has been named. Nobody's been mentioned. Does anybody find that a little odd, a little strange?
I looked through the list, not your list, but the list of all the people that were on the island. You seen that list? Like, and like what I saw, I think I saw it on Reddit, but it was you got like Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, it's everybody
was on there, and like then people are like, Dustin Hoffman's an asshole. Are all of them though? Are all of them?
Were all those people? Did they all?
I can't see Dustin Hoffman participating in that kind of activity. But then again, I don't know the man.
Right. You're just thinking about the actor.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like Tom Cruise movies. You can like his movies, and but he's a lunatic.
He's a weirdo.
He's a complete and total psycho.
Yeah.
But,
But Maverick looks great.
Oh, the new Top Gun movie?
Yeah. I can't wait to see it. Side note.
That first one was funded by the Defense Department, just so you know. Anyway, it actually was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a total puff piece for the military is all it was. Just a fucking puff piece to promote the military.
I think I read an article or
I gave you a list one time. I sent you a list with all these movies that were, in part funded by the Pentagon and the Defense Department.
Yep.
There's a shitload of them.
Yeah. And I guess I get it. It's like one big giant commercial for the Air Force or whatever the hell.
That's all it was. All it was.
I get it. I mean, makes sense.
You get they have to consult them sometimes.
Yeah.
When they're doing a movie, but these are just straight puff pieces.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
But I read something that for the new Maverick, they let him borrow like all kinds of fighter jets.
Of course.
But
your tax dollars hard at work.
Yeah. But Tom Cruise wasn't allowed to touch the controls. That was the whole big part of the headline.
He is a pilot, but
he knows what he's doing, but he's fucking Maverick. For God's sake. Man knows how to fly.
Yeah. So like, that's all this stuff really kind of falls into that category because we're talking about people that get propped up too, like, Elon Musk and stuff like that. These guys, Jeff Bezos, they're propped up. You don't just become that. I mean, he's got so many contracts with like, CIA and stuff. I think they do like a cloud hosting shit for the CIA. Obviously, Amazon, biggest online retailer in the world.
Never heard of it.
They're tracking every single thing you buy. That's by design. Okay. Of course, you sound like a nut when you're talking about that. Like, oh, it's it's the CIA. No, they're watching everything you purchase. Let's say, for example, you're buying books of a particular subject matter. That's could be questionable. I don't know. How to make a bomb, perhaps.
It's so easy. It's easy to do it. So why not do it?
Right. That's why everybody does it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I was one of them, I'd be like, yeah, this is beautiful. Let's just keep this data coming in. Get the next bomber fella.
Next Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah.
Have I mentioned aberration in the heartland of the real on here before?
Nope.
I posted a thing about it on our Instagram. But anyway, that's another good example of parapolitics because clearly something was going on with Timothy McVeigh. The whole, he's just another lone nut. He's making a bomb.
He did post that picture of him on Instagram. He looked like Eminem.
Right. He did sort of resemble.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But anyway, that Wendy S., I think it's Dr. Wendy S. painting, she did a really good book called Aberration, Heartland or Real, and she spent quite a bit of time. It's a thick book. I think that's like 1,000 pages or something like that, but it's a big one. But there's just so much more to the story. And again, that falls into the realm of conspiracy theory. It's not, there's too much information, too many dots connected for it to just be nonsense,
Yeah.
This guy just does this thing, and there's just this little, I'm going to just make a bomb, and there's so much more to it than that. Of course,
Yeah.
None of this gets talked about, and somebody has to go off on their own and research this and find all this information. You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm just stretching out. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
My left rear end cheek was starting to go numb.
Gotcha.
Just want to let everybody know.
Thank
But it's
you.
okay now. It's okay.
All is well.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, so just going back to the mass shooting events that are happening now, people are just I would say it's like they're wondering because they happen with such frequency. Are these people also being obviously pushed to do these things? Lots of indicators that they are. Okay, and it's a very much like an Operation Gladio. Are these different groups, assets, possibly even officers of these different intelligence agencies enabling these people to do these things? Are they assisting them in some way? And that's what I'm saying to you right now.
I know. I'm just thinking about it, and it's just they have to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's something going on. It's a little strange.
Yeah.
I think I read that this dude, supposedly didn't have any money or whatever. This most recent one in, what do you say? Is it Uvalde, Texas? Is that what?
I think so.
Uvalde, Texas shooting. He bought all of these weapons on credit. But again, any of these things that happen, they most times are communicating online and talking to people online, and they're just feds everywhere.
Yeah.
They're not being unmonitored. These are monitored platforms. Okay.
Right.
And so, when people like to squabble over, say, like 9/11 and stuff like that, the pointless things that you could squabble over for 9/11, which people do argue about all these things. It's the idea that a $50 to $100 billion intelligence infrastructure knew nothing about what was coming.
Failed.
Is just completely absurd. And again, that's more of the just looking at the information and being like, there's no way. There's no way that they couldn't know that this was going to happen. So at that point, you're left with they want it to happen. So many of these things. I mean, a clear example of that, too, is also like in World War II. We were not going into World War II, but what happens? Pearl Harbor, right? Which has been mentioned before. You want that Pearl Harbor event to take place.
Right.
So you get the public.
Kind of get support from the public.
And after 9/11, there was the Patriot Act and all that stuff. And you see slowly but surely the whittling away of like civil liberties and privacy, Again, with the pandemic, as that thing rolled around, you saw the entire world shut down and massive amounts of control put over the populace.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, all falls into the realm of parapolitics. This is what you're going to be, it's more appropriately labeled as parapolitics. So anyway.
Parapolitics.
Yeah. Now you know a little bit more about it.
Yeah. I mean, I hope I didn't come across as a total fool at any point during this whole thing.
No, not at all.
Okay.
But you're going to see that's really That's where I spend most of my time. That's what I'm reading up on.
Yeah.
It's the intelligence communities and doing all that stuff that really matters in the world, and what their purpose is. Their connections with the think tanks. By the way, don't trust any of those. You see a think tank, you got to wonder what is their objective? What's their goal? World domination, normally.
And you do a very good job on the Instagram at Terribly Vexed Podcast.
Why, thank you.
That's me. Yeah, it's just mainly that's what it is. It's just all kinds of,
real shit.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Sorry,
it's
I
great.
had to adjust my headphones there. My ear was itching. Sorry about that, everyone. So anyway, I guess I kind of bounced around there quite a bit, talked a lot. I was just gabbing like crazy.
Hey, this is your world, though, man.
Yeah. So I just really wanted to kind of make this an intro into sort of parapolitics, kind of give you a basic idea. Mention some terms there: sheep dip, limited hangout. You can go and read up on those and see how they relate into the world in which we reside, and think about other news stories in that sense, from that viewpoint.
Yeah.
What's really going on here? What's the bigger picture? You have to remember, a lot of these assholes, they got a good long game, great long game. They're not looking at things in year, 2 years, 3 years. It's 10 years, 20 years, where they can, implement their plans. I think we've seen a lot of these things implemented but we still like it. No, that's not what's happening. No. Surely that's not what's going on.
Yeah. Wise men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. I kind of
it's that
made it work for these purposes.
Yeah, it's that, but it's like for the negative. It's
right.
for the destruction of
evil men.
More control, more power.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and we'll get into some of these things that we've talked about in this intro episode of Parapolitics, in specifics in later episodes.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for those.
I'm going to maybe get somebody else here that knows what the hell you were talking about. When you brought up Ruby Falls or whatever the hell you brought up. What was it?
Ruby Falls. Ruby Ridge.
Ruby Ridge.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no clue. Did some spaceship crash there? I don't know about it then.
It's okay.
Ruby Ridge. Jack Ruby Ridge.
What'd you say?
Jack Ruby Ridge?
Jack Ruby Ridge. What the hell?
I don't know.
They just...
I'm bringing them all together.
Anyway, we won't get into Ruby Ridge right now. Maybe we'll do an episode on that. But most people now kind of know what happened Ruby Ridge. But anyway, we're going to call that an end for this episode to the parapolitics part of things. But normally we open episode talking about other things. But I guess we can kind of close out talking about some different stuff now. Real quick, I just wanted to mention this.
Yeah.
I love cults. I love cults so much.
Yeah.
This is just another, on the spectrum of conspiracy theories, just talking and looking at cults. There was so many things happening in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, like with cults and stuff, like in the West Coast, like California.
Yeah.
And like, the Manson family and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom O'Neill's book, Chaos, he, discovered that Charles Manson was seeing Dr. Jolly West, who was an MK Ultra doctor for the CIA.
Okay.
Crazy shit, right? So he was like out in San Francisco, which, by the way, that's a fantastic book, by the way.
Chaos.
I
believe that's on the Instagram once again.
Tom O'Neill, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was actually on Joe Rogan's podcast as well, and he's done a lot of podcasts.
I don't know who.
Some dude's got a little podcast, little baby podcast. No, it's nothing like us. What we've got going on here.
I've never heard of him. Okay.
But anyway, so like he did a good 3 hours or something. Jeez, it was long. Give you a good summation of what that is. But the book is pretty lengthy too. There's a lot of information there. Again, guy spends 20 years just digging into this and finds out a lot of information. So it was just very strange that all of those things were happening. It's kind of like the serial killers thing, There was like a window of time where there was all these serial killers,
Yeah.
And you just kind of look back on it now, like what was happening this was happening all at once, you know?
Yeah.
All of these serial killers were operating at roughly the same time. All of this counterculture bullshit of the 60s was happening. All of these cults were happening. Like there was one that I just sort of stumbled across, which I'd actually asked my pops about, and he knew about it, which I'd never heard, you know, just because I spent a lot of time reading up on cults. And it was the, what was the name of it here? Stand by. You know, when I am looking for something, feel free to talk all you want.
The way you were talking is like you had it right there, so I was just ready to go.
The Synanon cult. Have you ever heard of that one? Apparently, it was
Synanon.
Synanon. Synanon. And it was some sort of a cult that got started in like the 50s, ran through like I think it ran to like the early 90s, maybe.
What was
in
their
some
whole...
capacity? It ran to like the early 90s.
Yeah.
Eventually, it was dissolved because they had like people were disappearing and they were super violent, but like they did a couple of things that made them sort of, you know, show up on people's radar. Like everybody shaved their head at once, and because the cult leader wore overalls, everybody wore overalls. So you can imagine,
seems harmless.
You can see like it started like as like a small like strip mall with like 20 people, and I think it was originally supposed to be like you know, an addiction group like Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that, and started that way innocently enough, but the guy's intentions, his ultimate goal had nothing to do with that, and they moved from there into a much larger building in like Santa Monica, and then from there they moved into a compound in San Francisco, you know, and all of these things were happening roughly at the same time. So I don't know, I find cults fascinating. That just popped up on my radar for whatever reason, I guess because I'm always looking up this shit. But then like just seeing tactics that people like Tony Robbins use, you know, who's the self-help guru.
Yeah.
People are looking for gurus. They're people, this guy, he's got the answers. He knows what's going on. They're just grifters. They're shysters, you know. Anybody that's a fucking guru that's trying to make people think that they're
you don't like Tony Robbins?
That they're wise and that they've got the answers to the universe. I'm sorry to tell you, they're taking your money.
You don't like Tony Robbins though. Come on.
That big giant
He's
goon.
massive, that kick-ass voice. He was in Shallow Hal.
Oh, he comes out on stage, he's banging sticks, and I've watched some of his events, and of course, like if you look at his like the videos on YouTube, the comment section is just brigaded by his people. Like you haven't clearly you haven't been to an event. That's what they're called when he holds one of his $2,000 a person or whatever the hell they are events where all these people, you know, these brainless, mindless robots show up to this guy who does they all do the same thing. Their tactics are all the same. They use the same ones throughout history. These grifters, these gurus, these you know, cult leaders or whatever, they use the same goofy tactics on everybody. And it's just amazing to me. I just find it fascinating, man.
I saw a video of him. He was talking about success. You know, that's his whole thing, really. He's being successful.
Money management, financial,
and success. And he was talking about how he had this shitty job that he hated doing it. So, guess what he did?
What did he do?
He flew his helicopter over the building and just hovered over it and just thought back on his life. He was just talking about how, I flew my helicopter now that I'm successful and a millionaire. He's just flying helicopters around L.A.
Yeah, and
it's just an odd.
It's funny you mentioned the money side of things there. For whatever reason, I was looking up some stuff on him the other day, and I was thinking he's been doing this bullshit for probably 30 years plus. I thought, well, he's got to have a pretty good net worth, couple hundred million anyway. And I don't know if those websites are correct or not, but they put his, you know, wealth at near $1 billion. This
Jesus.
guy, he's got, I guess, an individual, you know, personal wealth of 500 million, something like that or whatever. But like with his companies, he owns lots of companies. Yeah. Obviously, you get that kind of money, you start investing in companies and gobbling everything up. But like he's worth close to $1 billion According to this one website, anyway, which would have been like that celebrity net worth
I
website.
don't think those are that accurate, but they're
He's got to be up there, though.
more accurate than
because like
what you could just guess. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at some of the events that he's held, and man, those arenas are absolutely packed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And these people are like chanting everything, you know, and he's backstage getting ready. They do like his whole prep, you know, his wife, like his fourth wife, you know, he's been married so many times. He's had so much litigation against him too, so many lawsuits and stuff.
Yeah.
But like he's jumping on a trampoline, and he's like she's got an eyedropper, and she's putting some like, you know, vitamin extract in his mouth and like getting him all souped up, you know. But you just watch them, and they all use the same tactics. It's like, you know, I have the answers. They approach everybody the same way with this energy, this bullshit energy.
Yeah.
You know, they're very assertive with like their hand gestures and their handshakes, and they just sort of invade your space.
Yeah.
It's just a total scam, but people love that shit, man, and they'll hand their money over. Anyway.
Motivational speakers.
Didn't mean to go down this route in the episode, but since we're here, and it could be a little while before our next episode, I just wanted to mention it. Sometime we're going to talk about some cults and maybe just kind of bounce around a few episodes talking about cults. But I just love, and just if you get a chance, send it on, look up that cult, look at some of the people. There's a lot of photographs online, people where they all shave their head, and they're all wearing overalls.
Why are cults always one, fucking weird, or two, assholes? Why does it always end up being an ass? And there's an argument to be made, sure, that all religions are cults in their own.
Oh yeah.
But
in the
like,
bigger picture of
right,
it's the same stuff, but at the smaller
I mean,
scale of
but like, why are they always so weird?
It's just ultimately, I think, you know, it's, I don't know. You have one madman who's ruling over them. Ultimately, his objective is to get their money. He tells them to live like peasants and to live in poverty. Yep. And he takes all their cash and lives like a king. And there's a lot of, you know, sex. You know, it's all about that sex. Of course, you know, the dudes all have to get like, you know, like in the Heaven's Gate, it was cut your nuts off, you know.
Well, you know.
They have some sort of weird, sick agenda in their head, maybe. Yeah. But like the thing I was talking about earlier, like all things in California, where all those were happening at once, or, you know, roughly at the same time period, was like, was this another operation of some kind? Because that's what's theorized from the Chaos book, was like Charles Manson was allowed to get out. He was constantly released every time he was arrested. He was arrested a lot.
Yeah.
Was he sort of being observed? Was he being monitored? Right? Was there something more to a lot of these things were just happening organically? Like, oh, this is where this is the free speech and free love is going to the West Coast. Now, 50 years on, people are looking back and wondering, like, was this part of an operation as well?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, just want to put that idea out there. But there's, you know, I don't know. It's really weird.
It is.
So anyway,
well,
I'll stop talking about cults now because this isn't a cult episode. But I think
we should do a cult episode.
A couple of cult episodes, man, because there's so much good stuff there. I mean, you can even get into the Jonestown thing, you know?
Yeah.
Which there's a lot more to the Jonestown thing as well. People have researched that. There was a lot of connections to intelligence with the Jonestown thing. Could that have been some sort of an operation to get rid of subversives? A lot of people theorize that could have been the case.
I mean, nobody died there, though, right?
Right, yeah, there's no death, though. Everything worked out at Jonestown, right?
Yeah, yeah.
More than likely, that's kind of what is looking like actually happened. That it wasn't just like, oh, a cult leader. No, there could have been more to the story. People could have been put there.
Yeah.
They were, you know.
I did hear it wasn't all, they didn't all just drink it and die. They were being, like, if they started running, they would be gunned down and stuff like that.
Shot.
Yeah, so nobody was leaving.
Who was doing all the shooting, right?
Right.
And I don't know if it's true or not, but I read that a lot of the property was actually purchased by someone who had, or was part of the CIA. Again, they had some sort of intelligence connection there.
The hell?
The property, right? So if that one thing is true, then that's
a little fishy.
Throws the whole, it throws the whole, because there was a lot of that going on. Anybody that had some sort of, looking at the time period, you have to go back to what was happening. These people would have been considered, you know, like I said, subversives or whatever, and they want to get rid of them. So what do you do to get rid of them? What better way? Send them off to another country,
Throw them out of planes.
And these people were abused. Some people did escape. They talked about the abuse that was taking place there. Sure, it seemed like a utopia at first.
Right.
But then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And what was the ultimate goal there? Who was really in charge? Who was perhaps allowing these things to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of a funny guy to say. Bill Murray. I don't know, but I couldn't think of anything clever.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Not always going to be winners,
And, they rarely are.
Rarely.
Yes. All my winners happen when we're not recording, though. I find that to be...
It's official when we're doing this, so...
Yeah, and it sucks.
Kind of lose the... Anyway.
Yeah.
So we're going to call that an end to the Parapolitics episode, the intro episode. And anyway... What have you got before we close this out, huh?
Well, I don't want to be, premature about this, but I think we have a winner of the...
A winner?
Of the contest.
This would have been the contest going back to episode whatever.
Hollow Earth.
The Hollow Earth episode.
Or Dyatlov Pass, whichever one you want to... Which I'm going to go back to Hollow Earth. I'm thinking he or she... wants this.
Okay.
It is a person on iTunes. We got rated,
human.
reviewed.
We think it's a human being.
Yeah, and like I said, we're always going to read the comments out loud, right? Good or bad, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and name the person right now. Now, does this sound like a man or a woman to you? Fally McSnaps.
I do not know.
I know. But anyways, we got a 5-star review.
So happy to see this review.
Yeah.
And you left a comment. We greatly appreciate that.
Very much. And it says, killer... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we were so close to saying, fuck this damn thing. And
we almost did. Last week, we were here.
Yeah, real quick. Last week, we were actually here going to do an episode. And this episode, but we were just talking, shooting the bull. Eventually, just talked herself right out of it.
About 3-4 hours, we were just sitting here chit-chatting. Mics off. That could have been a podcast.
Could have been.
But we were just...
Point was, we got to the point, I guess, where our energy level you do have to have some degree of energy to want to turn on them mics and get the...
Yeah, people don't think
there's a rhythm to it and everything. There's a little bit of work to it, so
yeah.
Anyway.
Not that we proved it or show it, but
not that you can
it's
actually.
It's a little
tell.
more stressful than you think it would be talking in a microphone, especially if you don't want to edit anything afterwards. You try to do it all the first go round.
Yep.
And also, Jack had to shit real bad.
Yeah, Jack is the border collie.
Yep, who's looking at us right now. Loving that couch again.
Loving that couch.
Anyways, Fally McSnap says, killer job. I've been listening since the beginning, although I usually listen on Spotify. I'd like to see more frequent episodes dropping, but understand how that can be hard. Thank you.
We're working on it.
It's difficult.
It's a challenge.
Being an East Tennessee native myself, this is especially interesting for me. Keep up the good work, guys. Exclamation point at the end of there.
And so, we will. Because of this one comment, I actually said, all right, let's do it.
It's very motivating. We got at least 2 more in us.
That's what we're going to be like from one episode to the next. Yeah. Let's just do one more episode.
Yep.
And if we got one person out there that enjoys it and is listening and can perhaps just pull one little tidbit of information that they find useful from our little podcast, we're doing our job and we'll keep going.
Yeah. But now the whole thing with the contest was rate, review, subscribe, and
remind us.
Send an email. Letting us know you did that. And really the point of the message is so we can contact you and know how to send you the awesome gift, which is what?
It's a book.
It's the Lost Diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, or our signed Dyatlov pass notes that
You
everybody
still have
wants.
those?
Oh yeah, they're in the drawer right here.
Oh,
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
or both. I think the person that
Or we can, or both.
I think that's probably we can
Okay.
just go ahead and get rid of. I'm not. I mean, get rid of, but like
Yeah.
gift.
Pass
to,
on.
Pass on.
Yeah. So if Fally McSnaps, you're the winner. I bought that just for this podcast.
Stupid.
Awful.
Took this wonderful, informative, intelligent podcast and just
Yeah,
drove it right into the fucking ground. It's okay.
I had to.
It's a nice horn.
No, but if you want if you want that book, I know you don't want the notes. If you want the book, go on over to terriblyvexed.com and send us a message. It's right there. Simple, right at the bottom of the website.
And we'll mail it to you.
Yep.
It's
Come
all
your way.
yours.
So, and we'll come up with another contest, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. We'll do another contest.
And honestly, I bet you Fally won't even send us a message. So, the book's probably still up for grabs.
Yeah.
So,
But she may. He or she may.
He or she may.
They.
They may.
Z may.
Thon may. All right.
Is that all you got?
I think so. I think that's about it.
All right.
So just
Fantastic.
the usual. Again, always, just go to iTunes, rate, review, subscribe. And if you want to get in touch, terriblyvexed.com. We got the website.
All right.
It's
Jack's
got everything right there. Jack's got shit.
He's starting to scream over here. So I guess we're going to call that an episode.
That's it.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Until next time, this has been Justin and Josh at the
Terribly Vexed Podcast.
Goodbye.